Hi, my name is Jana Dawson. I'm a lecturer, a program developer, a content developer, a corporate trainer, and a coach at the School of Positive Psychology in Singapore. My background is in organizational communication, organizational psychology, and leadership, and I've spent a lot of years trying to develop interventions and strategies to enhance well-being of employees, individuals, teams, and organizations. I started to understand the power of communication from a very young age. Now, I was born in a small town in Croatia. It had about 15,000 people. In fact, at that time, it was part of a country called Yugoslavia that no longer exists. My parents were wild kids, self-declared hippies. In fact, they were just really party animals. They loved having people over. We had parties almost every day, and our house was constantly full of people. I was a quiet and a shy child, but I really didn't mind having all these people around me. It gave me an opportunity to observe. I loved watching people. I still love watching people. I love understanding their communication, their movements, little nuances of interactions. I would hide under the piano in our living room and watch these parties taking place, looking at people's reactions when they were getting bored with the conversation, or agitated by what the speaker was saying, or even flirting and those flirtatious interactions. I used to play a game with myself to see if I could guess how somebody would react to what was being said. I got really good at it. I couldn't even anticipate in my wildest dreams that this was preparing me for something bigger in my life. So at the end of summer of 1985, when I was 8 years old, I was put on a spaceship and sent off to another planet. Not quite, but that's certainly what it felt like to me. I was put on an airplane, and as an unaccompanied minor, so all by myself, I was sent to Iraq, Baghdad, where my mother just started work as a doctor. I will never forget that trip. I was filled with fear, anxiety, uncertainty. The sensations going through my body at the time are still embedded in my muscle memory. I remember going on that plane and literally shaking out of fear. There weren't many people on planes at the time, and certainly not many of them were flying to Baghdad in the 80s during the war with Iran. There was a man who sat opposite me across the aisle on an airplane, and I'll never forget him turning around to me and smiling. That smile gave me a moment of joy, hope. It made me feel stronger. It made me feel that I can get through this. It was that real moment that I can remember positive emotions just popping up for me right then and there. I also remember being ushered through this strange space at the airport in Baghdad and people shouting across each other and language I didn't understand, people who were dressed in a way that I've never seen before in my life, people who looked differently from me. They were just pulling me around and not paying attention. There were no smiles. And I remember listening to those loud voices shouting, and I felt really vulnerable. And I started to feel afraid again and absolutely lost. I realized in that moment how profound communication is and the influence that it has on my well-being and my emotions, and how I am able and capable of dealing with a challenging situation. So I have spent most of my adult life trying to develop interventions and trying to understand better of how we can communicate and how we can make those connections. Because relationships are the most important factor that has an influence on our psychological and physiological well-being. So in the courses that I have developed for Infijoy, it's about positive communication and it's about connection. And these days, we're struggling to connect because of the technology that we have to deal with. We're working remotely. Often we are missing out on that nonverbal communication. So my goal is to find how can we connect even remotely? How can we create a positive space where people feel valued, where people feel appreciated, where people feel confident to take actions and reach the goals that will bring them to become their best selves. So in my positive communication course, we'll be really looking at what are the elements of positive communication? How can we understand our own communication style and communication style of others so we can create interactions that are successful? We'll be diving deeper into a simple communication model, CARE model, which will teach us how we can co-create a space that has an intention of a positive interaction. We'll be looking at how we can acknowledge who the other person is that we're going to interact with. We're going to be looking at choosing a response that is appropriate to this situation. And lastly, we'll be looking at how do we encourage others so that they can reach out for their dreams. So in positive communication, we'll be experimenting, we'll be doing a lot of reflective questions, awareness around your own communication styles, and ultimately how we can learn the skills and become better communicators. In our positive communication course, I would love for you to understand what kind of a communicator are you, to understand more about your own communication style and be able to recognize the communication style of others. You will be learning how to apply the elements of the CARE model and use it across your life domains in different relationships. And lastly, you'll be having an opportunity to practice a lot of tasks and a lot of skills and see how you can improve your relationships every single day of the course. I had an interesting opportunity post-pandemic to work with a team that has been put together during the pandemic, and they have never seen each other. Some of the team was in Holland, China, India, Singapore, New Zealand, and Australia. Very diverse team, and yet they were expected to work very tightly together. So here was an interesting part. So I was brought in to see how we can open up the communication, make more connection for this team so that they have a better understanding of where everybody's at. I had the opportunity to apply the CARE model, and this is kind of how it played out. And these are the things we identified needed attention from us. So first of all, when we talk about co-creating a space, the interactions were going very quickly. Because they're so busy, they were literally jumping from one meeting to the next, without setting an intention of what the next interaction requires from them. So we developed strategies of how they will take little mini breaks, and in those mini breaks, figure out what kind of a person do they want to show up as, what is required from them in the next interaction, what are the emotions that are at play at the moment, and what emotions do you want to bring to the next space. We also talked about how we're all in the same boat. So recognizing that common humanity and knowing that everybody is struggling with connections with people that have never seen face to face and that they have to work with so closely. The very profound learning for this team was when we moved into the acknowledge part, the element of the CARE model, which has to do with communication dimensions. These are cultural dimensions that influence our communication style. So the team was very animated and really kind of laughing at each other when we started depersonalizing communication. What that really means is looking at our innate communication style. It's not me, it's my communication style. So for example, the task and relationship orientation, some people from certain cultures just wanted to get to the task. When they jumped into a meeting, they wanted to see what's the agenda, how are we going to move forward. However, other people who are more from a collectivist culture really needed some time to have that relationship check-in, have that small chat and small talk. So what we did is we opened up a space where we could have conversations and figure out why somebody doesn't feel connected in a meeting. What do they need to feel more engaged and more connected? So we really unpacked those cultural differences in the team and how they were affecting the ease of the communication, how they were creating some misunderstandings, and what we can do to fix that. So that was incredibly interesting. We also talked about, for example, direct communication and indirect communication, and how sometimes the direct way certain people were talking was making others feel uncomfortable in that space. So, having those conversations in itself opened up an opportunity for the team to bring themselves closer and have a deeper understanding of each other. We talked about how we can encourage each other to stay motivated. One of the things that the team did was they chose to do a strengths-based approach. So they all took the strengths profile and we looked at the collective strengths of the team. We started to discuss how we could leverage individual strengths so that we can stay more motivated and energized. It can sap our energy when we're working remotely and by ourselves and feel really disconnected from others. So through those strengths, we also tied it into the culture of appreciation, appreciating the diversity that's in the team, appreciating the value that each team member brings to the table. And how do you integrate this culture of appreciation in everyday meetings, in little check-ins, and just shifting the lens from what is not working with that person to what is working with that person? It was a really amazing journey of using all these positive communication strategies and skills, as well as using strengths-based approach in a very unusual new world that we are working in, this remote working space. It was an enriching experience for me and the team. I'm still working with them and tapping into them, and it has made a big difference in how connected they feel and how much meaning they see in the work that they do. One of the most important things when we're starting a communication with somebody is that initial clear intention. Why? Because we don't do it enough. How often do you plan of how you want the interaction to go? We often jump from meeting to meeting. We burst into a room and we just say something to someone. How much thought do we actually put into what is it that we want to achieve with this interaction? So I want to encourage you to check in with yourself before you engage with someone else. And here are 3 simple steps that you can use to do this. So first, check in. Why? Because emotions are contagious. You might have had somebody else upset you earlier. You might be having a stressful day. You might be feeling anxious. These emotions are coming with you into the next interaction. Is this how you want to show up in this space? Because that's not going to set us on a positive path. So take a moment and check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? If you're feeling a little bit agitated or irritated, maybe go for a walk first. Maybe take a few deep breaths. Maybe have a cup of tea. But do something to neutralize those emotions so that you can show up in the way that you want to. Step 2, understand what is required of you in this interaction. Do you need to give advice? Do you need to support? Do you just need to listen? Do you need to dial up your empathy and compassion? What is required for you to be there for the other person? What is it that that situation needs from you so that it is the best outcome for both parties? And step 3, connect. Think about how you're going to connect with that person. One way that we connect is through a greeting. Make sure that when you do show up, you're greeting in a way that's sincere and authentic and appropriate for the person that you are interacting with. So for your task right now, take a look at your calendar. Choose 3 meetings you have over the next few days, or maybe even doesn't have to be a workplace, it could be with your family. And take yourself through those 3 steps before you go into those meetings. Take 10 minutes and check in where you're at, look at what is required from that interaction, and decide on how you will connect with that person. Have fun trying it out. When people feel appreciated, they will do almost anything to succeed. I think it's important that we develop a communication that's appreciative communication, that communicates value and worth of the other person. I think that is so important and something that we really need to take along with us. The way that we work now and in the world that we live now, it is no longer acceptable for leaders to set rules and set intentions of how things will be going forward. As a leader, we have to have facilitation skills. We have to develop skills of how we will facilitate conversations that will co-create an environment in which everyone can thrive. Our desire to connect with others is stronger than anything else. Yet, we learn all kinds of subjects in school, and very rarely do we learn the skills of how we can make those connections very meaningful and purposeful in a way that supports us and brings the best of us and others. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share with you things that I'm really passionate about and things that I believe will create a greater world for all of us. So I'm looking forward to diving deeper into these topics, unpacking all these theories and concepts, and most of all, sharing with you things that I have learned and interventions that have worked and made a significant difference in people's lives. So see you soon, and let's get to it.